I have to ask you about working for director Jerry Seinfeld.
Right.
And you're playing this actor who is the voice of Tony the Tiger
Yeah.
For Kellogg's,
Yeah.
and he's a real guy.
Yeah, Thurl Ravenscroft is now dead, was a real actor, and a pretty good one, I believe.
Yeah.
My Thurl Ravenscroft is clearly the American cousin or a cousin of Phoenix Buchanan from Paddington 2.
Ah, yes. Ah.
They're both disappointed actors who think that they deserve better things in life.
I think your door's a bit stuck out there.
The door won't open.
The front door?
Yeah, the front door won't open again.
It opened when we came in.
Yeah.
Maybe if you unlock it, it will open?
No, I understand what you're asking me, but the deadbolts are on a timer. I got carried away with our conversation. I didn't realize the brace had been set. I should have pulled the pin when you came in, but I forgot. So if you are now regrettably ready to leave, you'll have to exit through the back of my house.
Where?
Just through here.
Well, can you just unlock the front one, please? We would like to go that way.
Just so we don't get turned around and confused when we get outside.
Yeah, it won't open again till morning.
Welcome to the actor's side. He needs no introduction. His latest film, though, will surprise you. And I'll just say that as we talk about it. Welcome, Hugh Grant, to the actor's side.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice to be here.
And that film is called Heretic. And I was thinking, have I ever seen Hugh Grant in a horror film before? And I had. Lair of the White Worm.
You saw that?
Yes. Ken Russell, I think I've seen every film Ken Russell did. And I guess that's the only horror film on your filmography until this one.
The only deliberate horror film.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
What do you remember about doing Lair of the White Worm? Very early in your film career, 1988.
Yeah, well, I think it was one of Ken Russell's last films.
Yeah.
And he was a great genius. And did you ever meet him?
I never met him, no. I met him through his films.
He was hilarious.
Yeah.
He was one of the funniest men I ever met. And maybe because of that, he shot that film in a way that was, I think, semi-tongue-in-cheek. We had a read-through just before we started shooting, and the cast couldn't stop laughing because really it was so absurd. And then I saw him laughing, and I think that's why that film has a peculiar tone. But people love it. Mainly people who smoke a lot of pot.
Well, you know, it's a cult film now. It may not have started out that way. I don't think it was a box office hit, but
No, certainly not. But I gather this is the greatest compliment that it's at Tarantino's theater here in LA. You know, he has his own cinema, and it's been showing there. 2 of my films Tarantino has picked. The other one, even more bizarrely, is Music and Lyrics.
Oh, yeah.
A romantic comedy I did with Drew Barrymore, which I know Tarantino loved because he once pushed his way through some crowd at a party in London and said, "Man, I love that film." And I thought, no, you must be mocking me. But I think he really does.
Well, that's running the gamut of Hugh Grant films.
Yeah, it certainly is.
And your career, you know, in terms of that. The romantic comedies, of course, took over for a while in people's perception of you. And but I have to tell you, in the last decade or however long it's been in terms of what I've seen you do, they're now calling you a character actor. I don't know if you like that term, but that's what they're saying.
Well, I think I do like it. I think I do. I mean, and it happened largely by default because the romantic comedies just fell off a cliff. And thank God, in a way. I'm very proud of a lot of them, almost all of them. Hooray. I'm glad they happened. But then, that all finished. And really, this is a second career.
Yeah, and you're picking such interesting roles from, I mean, Paddington 2 and that actually, I think you must have been surprised, but that brought you awards recognition even for it. And a musical comedy career in the offing.
A kids' film. Oh, I see. Yes. Well, I do love musical comedy now. That got me interested. I've started watching a lot of, Gene Kelly and Fred Astaire things. I watch those films and just think they're so gorgeous and just viscerally entertaining. I don't see the point of making any other kind of film, really. Just have singing and dancing.
The MGM musical era? I know. I watch them all the time, too. I just watched Royal Wedding, actually, the British one, which I realize I'm watching and I go, I've never seen it. I've seen the dance on the ceiling and everything, but I'd never seen the movie.
Yeah.
And, it's just great. It's bright, Technicolor, fun.
Comforting. The older I get, the more I need comforts.
Is that right?
Yeah, little comforts. And MGM musicals are one of my comforts.
That's great. Well, Heretic may not provide comfort to audiences in a way, but it might, because it deals with all sorts of lofty issues in our lives, and particularly the afterlife, death, religion, all kinds of things. When I call it a horror film, it's really much more than that.
I like to think it's more than that, yeah.
Yeah, it's way more
It's
than
a psychological thriller, but it's also a film of ideas. And what's it for? People sometimes ask me. And I think it is to mess with your head. I mean, A24 films of this nature, when they work, that's what they really do. They disturb you, shake you up, send you into counseling.
Oh my God, did you ever see Midsummer?
That's what I was going to talk about, that one. Because I was sitting at home, whenever it was, a couple of years ago, with my Swedish wife, a tough day. We thought we need a film to cheer us up. And I was looking through those DVDs that come from the Academy. I said, oh, here looks a fun Swedish one. Sort of bright colours. It's called Midsummer. I said, it must be a comedy. Let's put this on.
Oh.
And really, to this day, both of us have never got over it.
Yeah, it's a very memorable movie. It sticks with you. I've seen zillions of horror movies, and I forget them when I'm walking out of the theater. Yeah. But that one was unique. Do you like horror movies? Do you like to watch them, or that was just an accident?
I like to watch the art, and art of them when they're beautifully made, like that one. But I would have to finish watching by 11 a.m. Anything after that, I don't sleep.
What was it about Mr. Reed, when that was presented to you, that intrigued you as an actor here?
Well, I don't know. The older I get, the more I am drawn to the misshapen, the twisted, the screwed up, the sick. Maybe it's all an antidote to the endlessly delightful people I was earlier in my career. But he ticked all those boxes and was very complex psychologically. I wanted to try and work out what hurt him, what made him like that.
Yeah.
But I also thought he might be fun. And he has to, for me anyway, a character, you have got to enjoy being them and have a sense this is going to be entertaining. Otherwise, there's frankly no point doing it. And I thought this man who talks a lot about religion and likes to lecture and disorientate young women like that, the way in is for him to be that teacher, that university professor we've all had who thought they were a bit down with the kids, a bit cool.
Right.
One who was iconoclastic and made a lot of jokes and was kind of fun, hip, or thought they were hip, thought they were fun.
Yeah.
And who wore double denim. Double denim was a very important kind of visual for me.
I think it was an interesting choice for you, with your history with the audience and their history with you.
Right.
To watch you go into this role and deceptively take us through him. And we think he's one thing because you sell it. You really do. We buy it. And then the horror can really, truly take place effectively.
Well, I always thought that the horror would be more effective the more outwardly fun the guy is. And he thinks this entire evening with these girls, even right up to the end, is kind of fun.
Oh, my God. And his technology and his taking notes, constantly taking notes.
Taking notes, the little devices, all of them very analog, very well-organized and complex architecture of his house. And I think he has this extraordinarily detailed Venn diagram for these evenings when people come to call. You know, if she does that, then I'll do this. He's worked it all out.
Yeah.
And that it was quite fun working out that Venn diagram before I started shooting.
It's one step away from Edward Albee in a way. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? A night of fun and games at George and Martha's, and this unsuspecting couple come in and get the treatment. I mean, so take that further, and that's really what you've got going here.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. And he gets off on, it thrills him to disorientate. And
did you create a whole backstory, or was this in the script? Because he's so detailed, and you really feel this is a very three-dimensional character as we see here.
well, it's nice of you to feel that. And yes, that's my process, which seems to have become more and more elaborate over the years. I start very early, almost as soon as I've signed for the film, doing the most absurd amount of tooth combing, like archaeological tooth combing through the script. Why does he say that? Why does he do that? I see it was something that happened when he was 12, and I gradually create this huge biography. And I really don't know if it helps, but I think it does. I call it a marinade. I sort of marinade in the character for many, many, many weeks.
And what kind of research do you do?
So there was a bit of that as well, given who he is. I don't want to... It's very difficult to answer this question without spoiling things, but maybe people can tell from the marketing anyway that he's not entirely nice. So I did go down a lot of rabbit holes with cult leaders and mass murderers.
Wow, yeah. I have to say your two co-stars in this, Sophie Thatcher and...
Chloe East.
Yeah. Are wonderful.
Incredible actresses, yeah. If we're allowed to say actress anymore. Actors.
This is the actors' side, so we'll call them actors.
Okay.
And be politically correct.
Yeah.
Whatever they are, they're terrific.
They're unbelievable. And such a difficult thing to do because I have to do a lot of listening, which personally I find quite difficult, particularly on camera.
Yeah.
And they have to stop being unsettled and a bit scared after maybe 20 minutes of the film, and then keep ratcheting that up for another hour and 20. That's not easy.
The production design is to die for, too. I don't know what it was like to work or where you shot this, but...
Well, we had a genius, Philip Messina, who built the whole place in a soundstage in Vancouver. And it's a work of genius. It truly is a work of genius, what he made, I think. So complex and so... Well, I would like to say fucked up, but I don't know if I can on your...
you can absolutely say anything here.
Just fucked up.
Yeah, and the way it goes, and all throughout this. I'm just curious about, I mentioned in the last few years, you've been taking these roles that, are totally unexpected, but we totally go into The Gentleman. Then I saw you in Wonka doing the Oompa Loompa. I mentioned Paddington. Cloud Atlas, I believe the directors of this film, Heretic, were massive fans of that and your performance, playing 6 different roles, and said, wow, and they thought of you because of that.
Yes, that's what they say. I don't know how much of that is true or whatever, but it has been quite fun over the last 8 years. And then there was some television, which was fun. I used to look down my nose at television.
Is that right? Because your TV stuff, I think the last time I talked to you was for The Undoing, which was a limited series with Nicole Kidman that I purposely watched every week. Like you could talk about it, just the old way. I used to watch TV and not binge it.
That's right. It was nice. It came out the old school way.
Because we're talking about this character and going like, did he? Did he not?
Yeah.
Did he not? He was a really interesting guy.
Yeah. So there's some similarities with Mr. Reed in Heretic, in that I had to create in my margin of my scripts 2 sets of notes, one for outward Mr. Reed and one for inward Mr. Reed. And it was the same with The Undoing. And that was a fun job. But again, it was television, but it was made by a distinguished film director, Susanna Beer, made incredible Danish films.
Right.
And the other TV project was was A Very English Scandal, directed by Stephen Frears, a film director. So, and again, a very complex and pretty repellent narcissist.
It's good to see these great directors
Not
embracing.
him, me. That came out wrong. Not Stephen Frears, my character.
Yeah, well, it's good to see them embracing this form, this longer form where you can play with it more. You know, I just saw a Disclaimer, which Alfonso Cuarón.
How's that?
It's fascinating. Kevin Kline and Kate Blanchett. And
I'd love to see that.
you'll like it a lot. It's really interesting. But I like, that's another one. You just let it unfold, and these directors really seem fascinated.
What's it on, HBO?
It's on Apple. Yeah, just started actually. So you're 65 now, I think. That's
4, thank you very
64,
much.
okay. Oh, when I'm 64.
Yeah.
Beatles sing about that time. You know, I talked to Jamie Lee Curtis, and she said the same thing. She said she's 64, and she decided she's going to make the most of it now. And boy, has she ever. She just said, I'm at a period in my life and career where I just want to take chances and risk.
Yeah, why not? There's nothing to lose. Yeah.
Is that where you're at?
I suppose I am. I certainly don't feel like there's much to lose, and you care less, which is wonderfully liberating. And not just in the roles you do, but in even this, when you're running around the world banging the drum for a film, and things go wrong. You say the wrong thing. There's a little explosion here and there on the internet, and it's nice being my age because you just think I don't really care. I don't really care. It'll all pass through.
Did you really care at the beginning of your career? Is this true? I heard you were ready to quit acting right before 4 Weddings and a Funeral, or is that just a myth?
No, that's pretty true. It's pretty true. Had a lot of fun. I had 2 friends. We had a show. It was a comedy show. We liked doing that. I enjoyed doing that. We wrote our own stuff. We were writing other stuff for TV in England. A lot of radio commercials we produced. And just acting, saying someone else's words, had lost its charm. And then one day, this script arrived. I thought, well, that's good. I have to say, that's funny, that's good. So I went for the audition, and they didn't want me at all. The director wanted me, Mike Newell, but the writer, Richard Curtis,
He did.
No, he thought I was all wrong. Yeah.
Wow. Why? Because you're.
Well, what he says is that he'd written it as this guy who would not get the girl, or would find it tough to get the girl. He thought I was too likely to get the girl, I think, and too posh. And anyway, that's why, having persuaded him that I was the right person, in that film I'm wearing the worst possible clothes we could put together, and tried to give me the worst possible haircut they could imagine, which didn't work at all, because when the film came out, people liked that haircut, and in some cases copied it. But that was the idea.
But it wound up being obviously an international smash, as they say, nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars. Yeah. You won a BAFTA award, a Golden Globe award. I mean, then all of a sudden.
Yeah, it was quite a catapult.
What did you think about that then? Did you say, okay, and then you became this
major...
Yeah,
a few months before I'd been this guy thinking, no, I don't want to do much more acting. I enjoy, the writing and things.
Yeah.
But then you can't. This is an extraordinary event. And suddenly I was being offered everything, really. And I thought, well, I have to do this. And so that's what I started doing. I started taking offers from Hollywood and things like that. That went pretty badly wrong at the beginning. But
Why did it? Because, I mean, if you look at that list after that of all those movies... 9 months.
So 9 months was made by Chris Columbus, who's one of the great geniuses of popular cinema.
Right.
Home Alone, all that. And 9 months was a pretty good story. It was based on a French film. It had an amazing cast, all being hilarious and brilliant. And then me being absolutely appalling. And I don't really know what exactly went wrong to this day. I think I panicked. So I thought, it's a big Hollywood film and they're paying me, so much more than I'd ever been paid before in my life. I thought I better act a whole lot more. And it was horrible.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I'll have to watch it again.
No, please, I'll pay you not to.
You know what I did watch again, because my wife loves this. I keep bringing her up here. She said, don't bring me up in these things. Notting Hill, which still works. You know, it absolutely works when you watch it now.
Well, I've got little girls. Well, I've got 5 children, but 2 little girls who seem to have some interest in my career who want to now watch these things. So sometimes I do rewatch.
Oh.
And my wife is very good on those Richard Curtis romantic comedies because she says, she's Swedish and from the north of Sweden where everything's about gloom and death and fjords. She said, the reason this film works, and Love Actually and all those, is because of pain. She said that the comedy is not just comedy, it's dealing with pain. It's dealing with unrequited love or disappointed love or bereavement or something. And she's absolutely right. I think that's why they do have some sustaining qualities.
That's so interesting. You mentioned Love Actually, which obviously is Richard Curtis again. And that movie, did you know when you're making that, you're playing the prime minister and all of that, that this is going to be the next It's a Wonderful Life, that it's never going to go away, that every Christmas, I saw the stage show here in LA that they do a multimedia stage show. There was a network ABC special with all of you talking about it. Did you have any idea that movie?
No, definitely not. Definitely not. That's very surprising. But perhaps it is something to do with what I just said. It's it's a funny entertainment and moving, but maybe it has legs, as we say, simply because it's actually dealing with something quite dark.
Right.
People say no, it's a bit of fluff, but I'm not sure that's right. Everywhere there's pain. You know, Laura Linney's dealing with her brother who's got problems with mental health, and everyone's living with pain.
There was a line Roger Ebert said about you. He was talking about how great you were in some movie or something. He said the Cary Grant department is understaffed right now. And you've gotten this probably your whole career, maybe not just because of your last name, but a certain amount of charm in a lot of movies and things that are Cary Grant was associated. So I've been watching a lot of Cary Grant movies, not preparing for this interview. Yeah. I just have been. And, he never took a leap quite as far as you take in Heretic in his career. I think he might have wanted to, and I don't know that Hollywood or the business would let him. And you are getting the opportunity, though, to go in all kinds of places. Like you say, you don't care.
Well, as I say, I mean, first of all, it's an absurd comparison. He was iconic and marvelous. Yeah. And I'm not putting myself in the same bracket, but I think that his career was different in that it was always on an upward graph like this. And it would have been, doing what he did so marvelously, it would have been a very big jolt to suddenly be Mr. Reed in Heretic. Whereas mine went like this and went, and so I can do what the hell I like. I'm building up career number 2.
That's funny. I always thought, too, that comedy, and you do it so well in so many different ways, and he did it so well, was never appreciated when it comes to Oscars and things. They think maybe that's too easy. His nominations came for None But the Lonely Heart and Penny Serenade, as serious as you could ever find Cary Grant. Yeah. You know, do you think it's underappreciated to be able to do that?
I really do. I really do. It's anyone who's done comedies knows it's harder. It truly is, because done right, it has to. You have to be 2 things. You have to be funny, but you have to be real at the same time.
Yeah.
The mistake I made in 9 months. I went for only one and failed on both. But you have to start with real and keep an eye on real. In films, you can be broader than that in television, but because it's shorter, 30 minutes. But it won't sustain for 90 minutes if you're just being funny.
You are, surprising to me, back doing Bridget Jones. And that character comes out early next year. Mm-hmm. So we're going to see you back in that role. Yeah. Daniel.
Yeah.
And with Renee Zellweger again.
Yeah.
This is I don't think you did all of
I
them.
skipped number 3.
You skipped number 3.
Yeah.
Why did you skip number 3? Or did they ask? Or?
They did want me to be in it, but that was the one about Bridget is pregnant and she's not sure if it's Daniel Cleaver's or Mark Darcy's. It was a great setup.
Yeah.
But I couldn't work out how Daniel would react to that in a humorous way that would sustain over 90 minutes. And in the end, just said, I can't do it. So anyway, they did it another way and did it very well. But in this one, it's a completely different story. It's actually began life as Helen Fielding, who wrote the books, wrote a non-Bridget Jones book about a woman based on herself who loses her husband and has to bring up her children alone. And it's very, very moving, very funny. And apparently while she was writing it, she realized the lead character was pretty much Bridget. So she converted it into a Bridget novel.
Oh, that's
and I read it, and it's her best book by far, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Really funny and very, very moving. And then a script was produced, and Daniel is her friend by now, and they wanted me to be in it, and I just said, that's fine, as long as we work out something for him. He can't still be just the guy who's picking up chicks and parties.
Right.
Something needs to have happened, something to give him a third dimension, and we devised something.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you seen it yet?
No, but I just heard about the previews. They're all very excited.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's got a built-in audience, to be sure, that's been waiting.
I think so.
Yeah, and it's fun to do. I mean, now that's back to your romantic comedy kind of.
Yeah, but not with a 64-year-old Daniel. Well, it's only there's nods in that direction, but there's more to it than that.
So, what does Hugh Grant want to do next? I mean, is there something that you're?
Well, I still get fabulously weirder and weirder offers. There's one I'm just probably going to do, which I won't divulge until I've decided. But it's even weirder than anything I've done before.
Wow, I loved seeing you. I love your stuff with Michael Ritchie. I loved Operation.
Guy Ritchie.
Guy
Ritchie.
I mean, Guy Ritchie.
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah,
Michael. Yeah. I always say that too.
Yeah.
Guy Ritchie with Operation Fortune, which was a really fun character.
Well, I agree with you. I loved being him.
Yeah.
I loved being him. Yeah. So, I love Guy Ritchie's films, actually. I think he's...
The Gentleman.
Yeah, The Gentleman was great. And he's just a really interesting filmmaker because he's very un-British in the sense that a lot of British films are strong on acting, strong on script, but not terribly visual or cinematic. And a guy who comes from advertising is brilliant with the camera, editing, sound, what he calls the zhush, and very unorthodox. There is a script,
right?
But every day you turn up, and he says, "No, fuck that, no." So and then you kind of all improvise it.
Oh my God!
And he says, "Yeah, that works. That's right." Or you might say that, and it's all done on the hoof.
Wow!
And brilliant.
That's so great.
Yeah.
Well, I always look forward to everything you do. And Heretic, you're in for something with this movie, and it's well worth seeing. Thank you, Hugh Grant, for joining us on The Actors.
Thanks, Pete. Thank you very much.